Start recording. Have you received any?
Yes, we are seeing.
Recording the meeting. Be sure to. Okay, so you see, okay?
Okay, now can you see my screen, my Excel file?
Yes.
We can see it.
Yes, Celia. Yes.
Fine. Hello everyone, I am Celia. I am a new member of VITALISE project and I work at AUth Medical Physics Lab, and I'm glad being here with you to collaborate at this project. So, as you may have already seen, what we made with Espina is a qualitative analysis based on what you sent us concerning the research's expertise mentioned by every living lab. So what we practically did is that we gathered all this information. We saw one by one the responses, and then we tried to make a categorization of the basic researcher's expertise. So on the left you can see the 20 categories, and on the right the times mentioned per living lab. We also had today a conversation, a meeting with Laurea, so these are our suggestions, but feel free to tell us. I can see here, it's a bit more analytic. We have policymakers, experts in communication studies, computer technologies scientists, psychologists, social workers, researchers with clinical expertise, experts in UX research and assessment, experts in sports science, in rehabilitation, in recreational interventions, business-oriented researchers, educators and pedagogues, healthcare economists, experts in ergonomics and safety, citizen scientists, biomedical researchers, architects, neuroscientists, innovation management researchers, and organizational studies. You can see here exactly what was mentioned by each living lab. For example, the term policymakers was mentioned by AUth. Policy advisor and policymaker was referred by LICA-Lab, and so on. We can see for every category the same thing. You can have a look and tell us how does it seem to you, if it is okay, if you have anything to suggest.
Celia, do you want to go back to yes, here.
I think the important question in here is that do you see that there's some category missing which you didn't put on the Excel files? Because now we are trying to find out as many viewpoints as possible. And later on, we will be kind of deepening the insights within each of these categories, like policymakers, so what they are actually planning to do or could do with the living labs.
Yeah, we mentioned entrepreneurs, Timo, but I guess you put them to the business-oriented researchers. Is that correct? Yeah, it's fine.
Do you think that they can be a category, a separate category, or do you think that they fit in the innovation management? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, business developers, business managers, that are those kind of types, profiles, I think that could match. They are interested in market studies and exploration of potential markets. So I guess it could fit with business-oriented researchers.
What we can also do is that we could be introducing like columns in here, that if there are some kind of a cross-cutting viewpoint, maybe somebody's coming from a bit different, but okay, business is kind of the key issue for these and these players. So that's might be one option to tackle that problem as well.
Often they did applied economics or something, and they're mostly their studies are applied economics, something like that, but it could also be other types of other types of people as well. So
Yeah, I think it might be this applied economics might be added as the kind, at least put that as a note that we should be considering that as one of the titles.
Would design go under architects? They're not architects, those that are interior, industrial, and exterior design.
Yeah, if you think about that as design from that point of view, that you are trying to develop or create a new innovation, then it might be called to the innovation management research. But if we, for example, make an addition over the innovation and design design management research, I think that might be a thing, because the innovation management, the idea was that for those researchers who are interested in about the researching the innovation and development and design processes itself, not necessarily actually only the product that what we are doing, but also including the process itself.
So what I'm referring to is design. So let's say designing inclusive spaces, designing interior and exterior. Where would you put that?
I would put probably was this is inclusive design, inclusiveness as one of the categories. Do we have that? Because that might be definitely one of the, even though it's included also the UX research, that includes kind of that kind of viewpoints, but it might be a good idea to highlight that as one of the main categories.
Maybe something like accessibility design.
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because we can put, yes. We can put the architects, and so we can put 14 and 15 together and make a new category, which can be accessibility design. What do you think?
Yes. Hello, this is Alejandro from UPM. I believe that we are the ones that put down architects. In fact, yes, the architecture project that we had is precisely for accessible escape routes from buildings and so on. Yeah. So it fits very well with this proposal.
Yeah. But it's not just accessibility. It can be kind of even ergonomics. It can be materials, with materials you can touch or whatever. So it's kind of a broader design area. I don't know.
Yeah, we have the category for expert in economics and safety. It's kind of in the the physical point of view, but that's more like to make sure that everybody is doing that, not specifically targeted for people with the special needs. So, but I think that architects might be like it suggested. Maybe can you, by the way, right away type the suggestions over there, so we could be seeing that what we are changing. Number 17 was architects, and there was a suggestion about the accessibility design, or what was the other ones?
Design, I think. No.
Yeah, and I think we can keep here, the architects and also the interior designers, etc. So like a comment.
Yes. And the other one was for the 19. We were just testing. Do we include the design management, or the design research itself, innovation management, innovation and design management? So those who are interested in about the the development processes itself.
So here.
Yes.
And design management researchers, if I hear it well.
And And the other one was this applied economics or applied business. What is applied economics? Was it that?
Yes, applied economics.
It was in the business oriented researchers for that 11.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you say?
Applied economics.
Okay.
You can keep that, but maybe keep the applied economics. So we can later on kind of fine tune what are the actual titles, but the.
Well, but for example, business development as a discipline and area of expertise is not exactly just applied economics.
Yes,
can be
more than that. So I think we should stay with the other one we have, and as mentioned by Timo, just had like, you know, and something, no, because it's kind of can be in the same.
So we can keep them both. What do you?
Yeah, just put that on the as after the business-oriented researchers, put that applied economics, and we can later on think about once we find the exact definition how the scientific research is defining them, so we can see that which part of are the same, or do we have to be separating things?
Mm-hmm.
But we have the 13, which is healthcare economists. So maybe we do not specify it that much, and we just change that to applied economy, and we keep both business oriented and applied economy. Would it be?
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we delete this and we put it 3 here.
Yeah, applied economics.
You just can copy paste that over there, so you remember that where you put the, or you don't have any calculations. Okay, yes, then it's okay.
Just put it
no,
in the
you
13
should stay with both. So eliminate applied economics after business-oriented researchers and put that in the number 14. Sorry, the 13. Instead of healthcare economics, applied economics that is broader and includes healthcare economics. And from what I understood, you can delete healthcare economics because this is one of the areas in applied economics. So just maintain applied economics in this point.
Yes, okay, makes sense.
So then in the 11th point, you should maintain the 2 votes for that. Was what was before? Yeah.
2.
Is it okay?
Yes. Anything else coming to your mind that what could be an additional category? Maybe you go a little bit up because we cannot see the number 1. Yes. Policy.
All this, sorry to interrupt, but all this reminds me of the UNESCO nomenclature codes. So maybe we can find inspiration on those.
Mm-hmm.
For specifically for nailing down the names, or I don't know.
Can you write it in the chat?
I don't have access to this chat. I don't know why. I'm trying to.
Yes, I can do it. I can do it.
I have a question. So, for example, users as co-researchers or user lead, you know, because it's the area of expertise that we are even considering different projects, that is user lead experience as co-researchers. This is included in the citizen scientists, number 15.
So I was putting originally the citizen scientist, more like that you research citizen science itself as well. You can use them, but you can also, you know, the research the citizen science phenomenon as an approach. So that's why it's separated.
So, yeah, because we have put users as co-researchers in the feedback we provide, and I'm seeing that it's not included. But I think that the new mindset is to consider them and open our doors also for them to participate. For example, in a Marie Curie research action, we got, I think was the first research action that we got even a new way for get some funds for some user car researchers to travel to different places to visit living labs and other entities and you know help us with the innovation process. Yeah. So I think that.
Yeah, that also could be included to the 19, the innovation and design management research thing, but might be if we want to highlight the user participation.
I think it's very specific and it's something kind of new that we are, you know, different living labs and different entities are adopting and trying to reinforce. So I think it should have their own category.
Yeah. So maybe we put it for the 15, we put citizen scientist and what would be a good title for the thing that you were just mentioning?
Researchers by expertise, by experience, sorry.
Normally it's users, co-researchers, kind of users as co-researchers is what.
Okay, let's put that and we can define the final title later on.
Users as co-researchers. Good. I think we can move on to the following one because we have a lot to see. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Good. So, Lady, do you want to continue?
Yes, sure. I'm sharing my screen right now. Moment is thinking. Good. We should be. Okay, window. Can you see my screen? I believe so. Yes. Okay, so in this section, what we try to do is a little bit different from the first one. And instead of recognizing how many of the living labs market each category, we wanted to go towards the description and to identify what are the technology, the data collection technology that each member is using, and try to make all of this, to put all of this in specific categories. So as you can see over here, we are trying to categorize wearables, and then we are putting subcategories of this because we can have wearables to measure heart rate, but also we can have wearables to measure chart activities itself. So the question for you here is if you believe this would be helpful for you, and also what is the aim is to kind of have a library that is accessible for you, and you can quickly come and text, okay, I need to measure, I need to identify an application that helps me with the heart rate, or something with the blood pressure monitoring. So I don't know if this type of division it would be helpful for you. And Temu, you also have a say over here.
Yeah, the basic idea in here is that not only that you are measuring heart rate, but also what is the kind of the outcome or the thing that you can do with the heart rate. So with the heart rate, I can measure. I'm not expert in here, but there are plenty of things that you could be measuring through the heart rate. So how you could be linking those different things together. And another thing is that the important for us is that do you need, for example, some special devices, or are this like something that you just could be uploading on app to your mobile phone? Like, for example, activity, you could be measuring like a mobile phone app, and that has a certain kind of possibilities and functions you can do. But maybe if you want to be measuring activity more deeply, you would be needing some additional devices. And of course, from your Living Lab point of view, that would be an investment to do. And you could be thinking about that, okay, what I can do with these devices and what I can do with these devices. So that's basically idea. Today we have a short meeting before this meeting, and I was explaining that we would like to make kind of an the online shop or online store for researchers. So you think about this, that you want to be buying a shoes, then you see a different kinds of shoes. You see shoes for running, shoes for hiking, and so forth. Similar thing for you as a researcher. I could be going in this section of the standard pages, and I could be seeing that all these kind of equipments and possibilities are available. So that's the basic idea in here. And now through this exercise, we are trying to somehow make a sense that how we categorize and how we kind of combine the information that was provided for us.
I can propose something that came into my mind.
Yeah.
We can have two possible splits. The one is about the device that is capturing the data. So as you said, it can be wearable, it can be unobtrusive monitoring, it can be, I don't know, environmental monitoring. But the other can also be about the raw data that are collected. Because for example, the gait, the steps, etc., you can monitor them through wearables, but you can monitor them through also unobtrusive monitoring, so cameras, etc. So we can have these two kind of categories if you find that useful. At least from our side, I think that it will be nice to have that.
Yeah, that's the kind of the outcome thing that, for example, if you're measuring stress measuring can be used for multiple things. And that's so basically, we just have to be identifying the different items and then kind of create the links between those. So how people have been using a certain kind of an equipment.
I don't know if someone is talking, but we cannot hear you well.
Peter? Is there any recommendation regarding the classification for this Excel from any of the partners?
There is a comment in the chat. from Gloria.
Yes, if now you create some groups, the wearables, for instance, but the others are like different type of devices measuring different signals, but they are with clinical purpose. So I don't know if could help if we create the medical device group as well as the wearables, for instance. So if we are classifying this type of devices within a living lab context, perhaps we can try to merge some of them.
Thanks a lot for your comment.
Yeah, and that I think that's important viewpoint, because I think some of those devices require different ethical approval depending on what we do. If you are, let's take you are taking blood examples for measuring something, blood saturation or something, or whatever. So you need a different ethical approval on that one. So I think one idea that we didn't collect when we are collecting this data, we have to be adding one thing, that what kind of an ethical approval we must add for this particular device.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also if we are saying, if we are talking about medical device, what kind of certification does this need to have? Because we can measure, I don't know, we have the smartwatches that can measure heart rate, but they are not medical devices.
Right. Probably medical device is a tricky name, and we could use health device or something better, because you're right, there is a regulation for this medical device name.
Yes, and this would be much more strict to follow, I think.
Okay, maybe I'm.
Can you please enlarge the text, lady?
Oh, yes. One sec. Like towards here?
And the other thing is in here that, for example, you have the certain items which is focusing on certain event, like as a sleep quality. Okay, you have items for measuring people's sleep, and you have kind of different items measuring movement, items measuring something else, like
Let's say track steps against sleep.
Yeah, so those are, from the research point of view, I think those are a bit different in that sense. Okay, in sleep measurement, you are measuring for certain things, and steps for certain things. Sleep you do in probably in home, or in isolated environment in the hotel or whatever, or the laboratory. But for example, steps you can do anywhere. So those are a bit different in that sense as well.
And there's also a difference in, for example, if we say that we are monitoring sleep, it can be that we are monitoring, I don't know, heart rate during the sleep, or we are monitoring movement during the sleep, or we are monitoring temperature during the sleep. So there is the raw data level, which can be even lower than the movement, which can be accelerometers, gyroscopes, etc. Then is the movement, then is the sleep. So maybe we can also capture that levels, which may be difficult to do now, but at least in general.
Yeah, I think it's more like that we have to be identifying these individual items like the sleep, calories, heart rate, and so on and so on. And then we could be asking that, okay, heart rate measurement, what I can be used that for? So what is the thing that heart is used for? And then the second question is, what are the equipments that are measuring heart rate? And there is maybe probably some kind of a scale. You have the watch, or you have some special medical equipment which is doing that. So I think there's a multiple categories and classifications in here. So basically, we have to be identifying those as individual items, and then see that which of those are kind of linked together.
So do we want to have a category, like a more general category, physiological? Oh, well, we have it actually, physiological data acquisition. Because this is so heart rate, temperature, sweat, things like that. They go in there.
Yes, that's good. So it's good because then we have a kind of these main categories which gives you an overview. Okay, these are these kind of things, and then there's a bunch of subcategories over there which kind of deepens the understanding about that, what kind of things on that particular category we are actually measuring.
Yes, yes, yes.
And also another broad category can be the biomarkers, which is temperature, blood pressure, BMI, heart rate.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Good.
If we are okay.
Yeah, one thing that we could be asking that when the partners in here are thinking about using some technology, what are the questions that you ask from yourself that when you're selecting a technology? How do you approach that? Are you looking for that, okay, we are measuring movement, or are you looking for, okay, we need to heart rate, or what is your approach? Maybe you could be shortly discussing about that, so that could give us an idea about how we present the results. So that is, you have now you are doing a research, and now you are planning that what kind of technologies you are planning to use. So what questions do you ask from yourself?
So if the question were, is the participants are doing a specific activity, and we're trying to see whether they are anxious or they're happy in this activity, so experience, I would be looking for heart rate. I would be looking for, I mean, other than qualitative measures, physiological measures, it would definitely be change in heart rate for anxiety in particular. Maybe measuring temperature on the palms, and or sweat. If I were to use an eye tracker, I would also look at ocular movement. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the question, right? So it's the question that will go and seek the particular technology. Is that what you're asking, Timo?
Yes, it's kind of an idea that you have to be, because that's the thing that people will be then looking for these technologies from a certain point of view. So what kind of an approach or user interface you would like to have for this kind of a database? It's database called all the technologies that Living Labs are using for measurements, and then what is the paid user interface that you want to be accessing, or the user interfaces that you want to be accessing, how you search the things besides the keywords or something like that.
Right.
Sorry for doing 2 steps back, but which will be the main aim of this database? Is to search about services or experience or something that is available in the different living labs, it's to somehow look for research from the living labs that can upload something about the studies on the use of these devices and studying these measurements. Are other aims around these, just to understand the focus of?
Basically, all of those that you were mentioning in a way. So you could be seeing that this living lab is offering these technologies, and with these technologies, I can do this kind of studies. I can actually even found the previous publications done with these studies, and I can find the available open data that has been done with these studies. All of those. The idea, if all of these items and the Excels what we have, we try to create a linkage between all of those in a way that we could be looking at the one individual living lab level or the one research level or as a whole network level of the living labs that are participating in this network. So that's the basic idea. And for that, we need kind of an unique names and unique categories to do that.
So we should have a structure of this database more detailed as possible, but these can also be growing, after some time.
Yes.
There's some new technology, some new kind of measurement being available and being used in different studies, etc., etc. Okay.
Yeah, and this now what we are doing is that's just the first draft based on the initial comments that we got from each of the living labs. And then after each 6 months, we try to improve based on the feedback and the additional data that what we are collecting. And hopefully, as we promised for the EU Commission, we have the final version ready and the supporting technological platform that you could go on the website and search everything as we have been discussed here today.
So in this searching motor, as I don't know if it can be said like that, then we will have different layers. So now we were all talking about wearables, that it's a common category being used. Then we have a second, if we select that, we will have a list of options. Will be probably the biological measures that these wearables can collect, or not just biometric, it can be other kinds of information that, because wearables, you might also not just collect pulse, etc., but this wearable can have an interface with the person to collect some kind of data, like from 1 to 10, how are you satisfied today? How happy you are, or I don't know if the person accepts or not to do something that the wearable is also. So it can be wearable, but it's not just a sensoring device. It can be also an interface.
Yeah. And also, this is a kind of a knowledge sharing that if somebody has that wearable device that you were mentioning, so my living lab becomes aware of that, even though we don't have that, because you have shared that information with everybody else. So it might be in a way that if that's really good, more living labs start using that similar approach in a way on their studies. And as well, we have a common research procedure for collecting data through that kind of an approach. So we can compare the results between you and us in the later.
I like that. This is good. So crisscrossing physiological measures with psychosocial or qualitative questionnaires, experience questionnaires. Yeah, this is good.
I'm thinking always that as a menu, what living labs can offer in terms of services, in terms of devices, in terms of data collection, in terms of expertise.
Yeah, it's a catalog of services, because you can say that you have studies with wearables, but you really have expertise just with a certain kind of measurements. So then you can be more specific in that. And I think it can be really interesting. It's opening a lot of possibilities.
Should we move on the next Excel demo?
Yes,
now that we are talking about services?
Okay, I start sharing my screen. So can you see it now?
Yes.
What you can see?
I see
Nothing.
Teams. And I see myself. Pretty big.
Yeah.
Can you see the color coding for summary results?
Yeah. We see Teams. We see the.
Sorry.
We see ourselves.
Okay, it's not sharing then. Okay, I have to change. Okay, now you see color coding.
Yes.
Okay, for now we're talking about the services, and the one thing is that we have to be agreeing that when we are agreeing. So let's say we have 10 living labs, and one is not agreeing with the rest of us. So are we agreeing? 2 is not agreeing. So what is the level of when we say that we agreed? In some decision-making processes, that if half are agreeing or the majority is agreeing, then it's okay. So in here is the first suggestion for the agreement scale that what we could be using, and now I'm open also for your comments that are you agreeing with this one or should we changing? So my suggestion is that if over or equal 80% of us or whatever group we are, using as respondents are agreeing, then we could be saying that we have a strong agreement between the partners. And if it's between 70 to 80%, so we could be saying that we are still agree, but we still agree, but it's not a strong agreement. And if it's between 50 to 70%, we could be saying that we have a minor disagreement. If it's between 30 to 50%, we have a disagreement. And if it's less than 30%, we have a strong disagreement. So how do you feel about this kind of a scale? So should we be adjusting something, or do you find this logical? I don't care about the popularity scale. I will be explaining that next.
I think it's
okay. Yeah.
Feel free to comment. Or do we interpret that if nobody's commenting, then it's okay?
Mm-hmm. Maybe you can enlarge a little bit the text.
Yes.
Yeah, except for the scale, I think it's totally clear, Timo.
Yeah. So, and we could be following this during the process. So we say that these are the rules.
I think that for now that we are not a lot of living labs, in some cases it would not make a lot of sense, but I think that in general, if we're talking for a larger number, it's okay.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we also collected in the services, we collected how many living labs is offering that particular service. So I was mapping the same colors with the different kind of an explanation. So if it was over 80%, I was putting that as a fundamental living lab service. For 70 to 80%, I didn't have any good name. And if it's a 50 to 70, I was putting like maturity service because majority of the people are offering that. And if it's 30 to 50, it was minority service, and less than 30 is a niche service. This was just an explanation that what I was using, but this is not that critical. But anyway, to me, it feels like if over 80% is offering some service and my living lab is not offering that, I should be concerning that, should I be start offering that? So, and another thing is that when we are talking about Living Lab services, are there certain services that are mandatory for Living Labs to operate, even though there are differences between the Living Labs? So those are the things that we could be discussing today as well. But okay, let's jump on the actual results, and I have to put now.
Timo,
Yes.
just one comment about the colors, because I cannot distinguish very well some colors, and I have problems with the second and the fourth. To me, are quite similar, and if we put it together in an Excel file, it's very difficult to know if it's one type of another. So please, if not now for sure, but if we could take care about this.
Yeah, we could be testing that. It's basically just a shade of green or whatever. We could be testing that. Also, you could be seeing those, so we know that they are good colors in a way. Yeah, that's good suggestion. Okay, here we have the services. So these are basically in alphabetical order, and here's a number of how many Living Labs were offering the service, and this is a percentage share of the Living Labs who are offering the service. And title, comments, account. If it's a 0, nobody commented the title. Description comment is exactly the same, that how many were commenting the description of the service, and this is just a summary of the title and description comments. But you don't actually have to be caring about these columns, because in here we have this level of agreement in a title and level of agreement of a description. But maybe just quickly go through that the popularity of the services. By the way, can you still see if I put this small the text, or can you read any more?
I can. It's clear enough.
Okay, clear enough. So what about? I was just thinking. I think I see everything in here. Probably that's. Can you still see it?
No.
Okay, a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that. So we see about 16 at the time. So in here, if we use the same criteria, so basically like co-creation workshops, grant writing and funding application support services, innovation network orchestration, and large-scale real-life testing and piloting, and public procurement support services, small-scale real-life testing, stakeholder analysis and mapping, and usability testing and user personas. All of those are clearly kind of the services that, let's say, most of us are offering. And the other ones, these light green, the access to data, clinical trials, and regulatory approval tests is most of us as well as doing. And concept test and proof of concept test, feasibility studies, customer journeys, equipment and facility rental services, funding. By the way, this is on, yeah, idea selection and testing. Do we have, by the way, I'm just checking the right data, yeah. But anyway, but like post-market surveillance and market acceptance testing, that's clearly something that's only few of us as doing, as well as the simulation tests. And this was a little bit strange to me, that Living Lab project planning and management, we are not offering as a service, even though we are running the projects. And impact assessment and validation tests, hackathon design sprints, foresight studies, trend weak signals, and wildcards. So this is the kind of the quick overview that which of these are the most popular. But let's do not focus on those on today, but let's focus more on how we can try to agree on the certain titles as well as certain descriptions. And today, when we're discussing about how we would like to proceed today, is that we want to focus on those titles that are not agreed. So basically meaning the briefing, funding, observation, ethnographical studies, panel research. So those were the ones that did not exceed the 80%. And first one is the briefing. And for this now I put it a little, sorry. So here we have the structure that what was giving for us based on the data collection. We have the title briefing, we have title comments account, we have auth, legal lab, and Treback were mentioned in these kind of comments. Outside then contextualization and planning, or planning and informative updates, intake and offer of services was legal lab saying, and Treback was saying mapping. And the description of the comments, there are a few comments. For example, in our point of view, we say that this is a very short interaction between the clients, from few minutes to few hours. And in here, other ones are explaining. So original descriptions was during the briefing, the customers, for example, SMEs or startups, development and testing needs are clarified for the project planning purposes. And we've been using the briefing as a title. So in order to achieve agreement with the title, so we should be thinking about it, how we would like to improve this. And now I'm open for the comments from the other ones as well, besides auth, legal lab, and Treback. So how would you be improving this?
This is in fact the first conversation you have with a potential client. That's correct. That is what it is, Timo?
Sorry, can you say it again?
This is in fact a first conversation you have with a potential client who you will delivering services to. That's correct.
Yeah, yes. So it's a kind of a first encounter with with the client. So you're trying to figure it out that what you are doing.
Yes. So yeah, we always call it an intake discussion, intake interview, and based on that intake, we make up an offer of services. So maybe after the first intake, you need another elaborated conversation. That's possible that is necessary. But so really the first thing, that's, don't know what is understood under mapping, like Treback is explaining. Maybe they mean the same. So because on the intake, you could also use a standard questionnaire, for instance, or you could standardize something that all of us could use, check with the customer or with the client what they need, how will we check it, how will we discuss the services, how will we present them, how will we present ourselves. That are the things that happen during the intake.
Yeah. So anybody else having an idea that what would be the title in here? So basically describing the evaluation of service needs for the client.
Treback did mapping because briefing for me would have been something deduced for a bigger, whole thing, like kind of summary of something. So for me, briefing wouldn't express exactly the same as mapping or intake or some orientation. For me, briefing was a bit suggesting that we already know what we are heading for. We just sum it up for the clients or for someone else.
I had the same idea. It's more informative, more from one side. You inform somebody, you do a briefing, but this is interactive, of course, in intake, because you ask questions, they give you some information, they ask you questions, so it's both sides.
Yeah, but this word comes from the design brief. So that comes from, you give a brief for the design. So that's the streams, yeah. But what about the other ones who have not commented in this title? So what would be the I think and always the aim is that we should have a title that is self-explanatory. So we right away, by reading that, we know what is going to be happening in that particular service.
Timo, for me, the word intake says much more. It's also a word that Vicky just used, and it's also further down this text. What would be, is that a better alternative, or do you have other negative parts about using that word? Intake?
And anybody else having a comments about intake?
Actually, I prefer it to briefing, which I see very unidirectional. It's like us briefing someone else, but maybe it's my understanding of the word. And do we only want one word here?
We can have as many words as possible, but as short as possible, of course, about this. And it should be in a way that right away everybody would be knowing what is happening. So I think that's the most important kind of an criteria for the title.
So if you were looking for one word, intake probably sums it up, because it implies information that's coming from the partner, the client, whoever, and well, it implies also some exchange of information.
Yeah, and it's also in a kind of an offer negotiation. It can be like 2 words or 3 words. I wouldn't be limiting things into single word if we can be having with a few words as clear as possible.
Can I comment?
Yes, so please right away comment if you have a comment, because I don't see anything.
Okay.
I'm just looking for my word. Yeah.
Hi, Timo, Koen here. What we used to call it is a matching session. We match the need with the offer. That's what we called it at IMEC, where I used to work before. We called it matching meeting. But intake does cover it better than briefing. I agree with the other comments.
Can we do both? Like intake and matching session? Because intake does not imply matching.
Yeah, because maybe I understood your explanation wrong, but the purpose of this meeting is to identify the needs and then come with an offer to answer to that need. No?
Right. I guess.
That's why we mentioned intake and offer, because we see it as indeed 2 things we need to explore in this meeting. So intake and offer. It's in fact to get an idea of the user requirements, and the user in this fact is the client. And when we know the user requirements, we can make our answers to these user requirements. That's, I think Koen understands it. Matching might also be a good word. So instead of offer, then yeah. But if you work with a private customer, they pay you for your services. They are well aware of the word offer. They exactly know what is in an offer, and there is a budget in it, and so on. Yeah.
Yes, but is this the purpose of this meeting? Because the offer will come later, probably. You are first identifying, you're closing the gap between the request and the things which you can offer, so you're matching it.
Yes, you're asking about the info to make your offer later on.
And probably the offer, which is indeed a very common term in the private sector, will come later by the supplier. Then in this case, the Living Lab supplier.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm just thinking out loud here, huh?
Yeah, that's correct. It comes a bit later.
Is it like a matching client needs to? So this is basically what we do to Living Lab.
Yeah, it's the other way around, of course, Timo. You're matching the Living Lab possibilities to the need of the customer, not the other way around.
Yes, you're right.
And that's why it's good to have intake as well, because during intake you understand the needs and explain what you have, and then you match.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, maybe intake and match could be a good total.
How sexy does this need to sound? Because you can go
Everybody
with
has to
circles.
understand it.
So then it's not sexy.
So if the okay, short version, but then if you show this somebody else who is not in this discussion, will they understand that? But then is it like, is this line that I'm highlighting now, intake, matching Living Lab offering to client needs? Is this self-explanatory now? Does this cover everything in your opinion?
To me, it does.
But what about the other ones?
Approved.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit skeptic about just intake and match, because intake of what and matching of what? So that's my problem in here.
Yes, but you have always a description. Eh? So Teemu, you had a title which was short and some description explaining what you mean with the title. And if you make a menu of services, who is doing what, how many time do you need, I should also choose a short thing to put on a menu.
Yeah, or what we can also do is that we have the structure like in newspapers. You have the header, and then you have an ingress, and then you have a description. So that's the one way we can be tackling probably this generic problem in everything. So we have intake and match, and then we, for example, have matching Living Lab offering to client needs, and then we have the actual description.
I would rather go for intake and matching, because matching itself, yeah.
It's a football match.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah.
And then you can describe, then you can put needs assessment and services, services offered or something. But that matching implies both of these things, at least in my mind.
Can you please say it again? So intake and matching, and what else?
Well, no, underneath, like if you are going to describe it, in order to match, you need to do a needs assessment and to have the services offered. Services offered by the Living Lab, needs assessment, and then matching comes. And then after that is the offer that Vicky was mentioning.
Okay, but anybody complaining about the intake and matching?
Sorry, can you again repeat?
If the title would be
what
intake.
means intake here? I was with a call some minutes ago, so I probably didn't hear it. What do you mean by intake?
So it's basically the thing that this description that what we have. There's a briefing, and you listen to the customer needs, and you explain your offerings, and you try to match your offering in a way that the client can be doing the research project that they desire. So that's basically the thing. They want something, and you tell that these are the things that what we could be offering, and you try to tailor-make your solution in a way that, or your offering in a way that the client would be satisfied. But in here, you are not making the actual offer. You are just listen to the needs of the client in order to make the actual offer for them. And these can be even multiple kind of the events between you and your client. Okay, let's let's try with that one and see how it comes on the next round. And also we had, maybe we go through these descriptions as well. There was a few comments in a way. For example, Laura comment is not about comment on the description itself, but it's just a comment about the how long does it take. Or maybe we should be highlighting in here is that this is typically, it doesn't take long. So that was our comment on this one. And Auth was saying includes also mapping needs and get to know your clients and your clients' clients.
And also the Greek are what our client are asking us to do. So understanding what our clients are asking from us.
What was the and understanding clients are. What was the rest of it?
What our clients are asking us to do. So it's basically what was described above. I think that matching of Living Lab needs to customers, to clients. Sorry, Living Lab offered to clients' needs. That is basically what we were discussing in Auth.
Yeah. So I think, and also Legal Lab comments in here, maybe you could be commenting about this description. But I think in a way that what we could be doing is that we just extend the description, because all of these are in line what has been said in the original description. It's just very short.
Yes, I think the description is quite well the same as what just as Buina mentioned, that we exactly want to clearly know what the customer's expectations are towards what he's trying to, what his goals are, and how we could help him with our Living Lab services. Yes, and what Koen says is correct. The thing that comes later is the offer, including a timeline, operations, and so on. Yeah, first we have, of course, an internal meeting to set this right and to make up the offer, and it's not immediately in the first intake or in the first meeting that we have.
Yeah, and we could be highlighting that offer is not included in this phase.
But the goal is that you know enough, that you have enough info to make a first offer. Of course, that's what you as a Living Lab want to get out of this.
Or different offers, because maybe they want different tracks. So
yes.
So budget is certainly not included, and well, there will be money included in this talk because the matching is also based on the available resources of the client. But there's nothing. Well, the services are not linked to the budget in this call, I think. You're just exploring.
Yeah. So anybody in UPM in here, or do they want to comment about a comment? I think it's pretty close to what we have already discussed.
Yes, more or less is the same. Same.
So we will be doing an additional extending this description based on the what was discussed in here. And let's jump on the next one. The next one was funding. The funding, the additional comments with financial support would change title not to conclude, be mix up the next entry. I don't remember what was the next entry. And the idea was the providing funding or investment for research, product or business development for small and medium-sized companies or startups. Typically, funding is targeted for short-term, small-scale experiments. And there are a few comments in here. So let's open the discussion about the title.
We mentioned it differently because saying that funding could imply maybe that you have a basic standard fund yourself, that there is always an available fund, while maybe it also covers financial support, which is temporarily or which is not, let's say, in the name of a basic fund that you exploit yourself. You understand what I mean? So that was the reason why we changed it a little bit in financial support.
Yeah, the origin of this was that in the Prova Health project, there was one living lab or the organization who was able to give funding for them. So they had this kind of
a fixed fund always.
Some kind of a national funding, and they were distributing that to everybody else. So they were holding that. So that's why it's was called funding. But like in our case, and many cases as well as in here as mentioned, we can provide external funding if that's included in the project grant, what we have been acquired, like through the open calls, like in VITALISE. We are offering funding, but it's not a permanent funding. We don't have a permanent way of offering that, but it's because of the project.
Yeah, it's a little bit the same as what I have written down concerning the EU-funded projects. Like, indeed, you can deliver some Living Lab services as money that you give to companies, and sometimes, like in the Cross-Care Fund or project, we also had R&D money, so it was really for the companies to pay for their R&D investments then that need to be done. So, but it's all related to the EU-funded project. So if there is no project, there is no money for them.
Yeah. Does anybody remember what the European Commission or your national funding agencies are used for this kind of funding? Does it have like some generic European term for that? We always call about the open calls is in our case what we do, but it's a bit different because they have to be. Kuhn, I remember that in Belgium you had this kind of funding that they got like a 50%, but it was not offered by IMAC, but it was offered by the government. So what was that funding called? They got like a 50% off or something like that.
That's why was a program called like iStart, it was called, which was funding. Well, it was an SME accelerator program actually in this particular case with IMAC. So it was only meant for SMEs and small startups, even students at a certain stage with an ID, and then they got 50% of funding. If this was the one which you were looking for, because within the IMAC constellation we had like 20 different kind of funding streams going on different levels.
Yes. Yeah. In Flanders, you have lots of funds where SMEs can profit from and where you can guide them to. So that's also what you can do as a Living Lab. Say you can go to that fund if you know what they can get out of it, and then you can collaborate. That's mostly done, I think. I think most of us do it like that, Koen. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, of course, I'm a bit out of the system in the meanwhile. But,
yeah.
You will be better placed by now, Vicky, as one of the active organizations in the funding landscape in Flanders to understand what are the best ways. There was the other way, but that was then. I don't know how did it work in Flanders Care Living Labs, Vicky? Was it 100% funded for you?
It was funded like the program of the ONO. You know the ONO, so there's always a percentage of the total budget. But I think for the care innovation program, it was a bit higher than the usual research and development programs, because they wanted to stimulate the SMEs working together with the Living Lab. So they got, I think, 10% more. I think they were 45% funded, their R&D and their development. And in the usual programs, it's a bit lower. Yeah. So, and also with Cross-Care, that's an Interreg project. They also get only 50% of their R&D. They still have to invest themselves in their R&D, and it's a bit.
So, and in here we have that what was agreed. We have this grant writing and funding application support services. The one reason probably also why we use the funding application, because we used funding application in here. So probably that's why we also used the funding as well in here. And I think this is a specific funding. If you have financial support, it's not support for everything. It's support for doing a research activity in a living lab, right? So that's what we are looking for, right?
Mike, if we had providing research funding, not to mix up with the next entry. So to add providing in the beginning, what do you think?
Or if you were to add resources, funding.
That would also coincide with the next one, because the next one is about finding and trying to help with the resources and fundings and grant applications.
But of course, you could also, in specific programs like we did in the Cease to Grow project, you could deliver only services, and the companies have to pay for their own R&D. They come to the program. It's like Koen said, it's a kind of an acceleration program, but it's purely to get the services of the Living Lab. So we arrange sessions, testing, and so on, but we don't give money for their tools and their prototypes. They have to pay that themselves. So that's also a possibility. And then I would not really call it research funding, because it's more related to the Living Lab services itself. You understand? So
can I ask something? Hi, this is Paraskevi Gyurka from Anthology Ventures, and just one clarification first. I was wondering if the funding can also be related to potential business angels that may have an interest in the exploitation of the research results, and can provide some seed funding for those researchers who are perhaps in a preliminary stage, but again, they have a quite interesting idea, and they want to do some research within the Living Lab to validate some of the results. So how about funding and investments, perhaps? Or is this not the scope of this particular
investment was not included in here, because in the Prova Health project they were not giving any investments. They were just the supporting for these small scale experiments. So basically doing free of charge research in a way.
So how about grants, funding and grants? Would that be suitable?
Grants is also a good word. Is a research grants.
I would though be careful in choosing the correct title, because companies might think that you have permanent money, that you have a fund, they can always get some money out of it, they can always apply. But if you have temporary funds out of EU funded projects or so on, then you don't really have a fund that is always there for them. If the project finishes, you don't have open calls anymore. So you have to see, if you want a permanent one, you should work together with private partners. You should set up a specific fund where there is always money from those investors. And then you can attract SMEs that need some financial support to work with Living Labs, for instance. But that's a completely different way of looking at it.
I think that to me it is like, if we add this temporary and we link to the research, and we still use the funding, because to me the financial support is at least to me it's a different thing. It's much more broad in a way. But the temporary would be like linked, like you said, it's one-off, or it's sometimes, and so forth. And it has to be probably in the what Living Labs are doing. We are doing a research, right? And we are funding, of course, funding for doing our work. So that's, we are not giving funding, or is anybody giving funding for something else in this context? You know, they doing something else which you are not. At least for us is always meaning that we give funding for them, so they expenses for our services is covered. So that is what that means for us. Any more comments on new ideas about the title? So then we could be thinking about which of these are the best ones.
And there is still a question from Kyrka, I see, or there is a hand up.
Okay, yeah, yes, please, because I cannot see the hands. Yeah.
I personally like that approach, the temporary research funding. I don't know if there is the possibility of having that continuous funding in a living lab. So if we are restricting somehow the definition, at least in case we don't have, like a temporary is based on projects or on specific amounts that came in our lab and we can distribute. So the temporary does not seem restrictive, but a bit more comprehensive, let's say.
So if that would be the title, the temporary research funding, any objections within the group?
No. A small remark though, isn't any structural funding temporary after all? It ends one day, no?
Yeah.
So I see your point, Despina, on temporary research funding, but if I read something like temporary research funding, that's, to me, it's like a very short period. It doesn't need to be a very short period in this case, I think. Or maybe I interpreted things wrong.
I think in most cases, to me, it is kind of, it's typically quite small, because at least in our cases, we don't get like a huge, the money might be a huge, but it will be divided with the multiple entries, like in the VITALISE case. I don't know how much we have the money, but it will be divided by quite many cases, and the one entry to Living Lab infrastructure is few thousand euros.
Yeah, but I don't have any opposition to the temporary, just a semantic discussion, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, let's freeze that one. And also we have these comments about the actual things. Alf was asking, does this include offering equipments for use or paying researchers for doing part of their research as an internships? How this was originally described, it was the kind of the providing the kind of the voucher for a company to use the services, but in a way that I think that we could be including whatever kind of an financial support for example, like you said, the researcher or even student to use the services in a way. But if there's anything in here, so we try to add the things that are added in here in the description. And then we have the funding, observation, shadowing, ethnographic studies, as that was the kind of a light green, but maybe we just quickly go through that. And next one is a panel research, or maybe let's take the panel research first. Okay. Panel research original title of panel management, fast recruitment, panel research and management, panel management, pool of users was the suggestions in here. Any comments about those who were giving the title comments?
Yeah, I would certainly not call it research, because that's not what you're doing. You're performing research by involving a panel, no?
Yes.
So it's not panel research. because co-creation is a type of research, but there's value for the panel too. So it's well, I would stress less on the research, because it's about involving, it's about engaging in the long term, probably to a certain degree, when you talk about a panel. Otherwise, it's
yeah. And then the idea.
I did not read the original description, so I will read this first.
So it's basically just that there's a pre-existing group of people, and you have basically, this indicates that you have the panel, pre-existing panel in your living lab. So that's the description.
But this panel of normally it's panel of stakeholders or users panels or participants panel. So
yeah, but the service you deliver is the fact that you manage it. I would call it panel management. It's, I think, the most clear that you are the one that manages that panel and that can deliver a service to
exactly. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And let's not go into the semantic discussion, but in what is a user and what is a stakeholder, because every stakeholder is a user and the other way around sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, the panel management is the value offer you have to provide. Yeah.
So
because when you talk about a user panel, Timo, in a health setting, I'm immediately thinking about patients in hospitals or elderly people in a nursing home or something like this. Mm-hmm. If you're offering panel management, this goes beyond this type of people. So that's why you should, from my perspective, use the word panel more than user or stakeholder or something like this, because they're both included in the panel which you are managing. And a panel by default is short or mid-long term.
Yeah, so in a way that what we try to highlight in here, because of course in every Living Lab experiment, you have to be recruiting a group of persons to participate in the research. And in here, it was highlighted that there is a pre-existing, even before you have the research, what you are doing, but you have a list of persons you are in your panel, like in this, like in IMAC case, or you have this commercial, the panel providers, like TV panel or something like that. So that the idea in here was that highlight that you have, and then you could be describing that what kind of a pre-existing panel you have. So that was the idea. It's you have to be managing panel in everywhere.
So you're not referring to the action of maintaining a panel, but having it. So
yes, having it. Yes, that was the idea in here, because you have to anyway manage the the users who are participating in the research in every case. Even you have a co-creation workshop with the 6 persons, you have to be recruiting and managing them.
Yeah, but
anyway, and that's a mandatory requirement for running a research in a living lab. But in here, the highlight was that you have pre-existing, so you don't have to start recruiting anybody, but you could be showing that, okay, I have these people in here. Are you interested? Like these senior citizens or whatever.
Is the value that we have that people, but if we just have them and they are not engaged and we cannot manage it, we are not offering a value. So for example, if I have collected some emails from people and I have not contacted them for a year, it's not a panel that I have. So it's a value for the others. So I think that the real value is the management that we do, and that implies also the maintenance of the panel and also how we handle it, how we handle the communications, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can discuss about this, because you can add another original title if there's room in your exercise and focus on the management perspective, because there's a difference in having a panel and a client comes to your living lab and says, well, I want to run an experiment, and I need this type of people, and then you provide them one shot it's something totally different as that you are saying, yeah, but we do have a community of practice or whatever you want to call it, a panel, which is able to get through the whole funnel of your innovation, which is a total different approach. And
so
then you're panel managing.
A panel for these specific.
So on the one hand, you are offering cattle. You need people with this profile, we'll deliver it to you, and we'll never look back to them again because it's a one-time shot. On the other hand, you're involving, and then the management and engagement strategies are crucial, and that's a service which a Living Lab, well, not all of them, because yes, VITALISE does it, IMEC does it, but there are some choosing, well, we'll find the same other people every time again. That's a conscious choice you need to take. But if the purpose of this part is describing that you have a long-term panel, then you should stress the fact that it's a longitudinal one, which is able to participate in multiple activities with the same person, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Yeah, sorry, it's already after 4. I'm not sure. You see the difference, because you can offer user involvement, and then you say, okay, which profiles do you need? And then we will get your profiles. Or do you want a group of people joining you through the whole funnel, let's say?
Yeah, this can be a new title for service. This can be something like...
so these are 2 different panel services.
Creation, panels creation and engagement, or something like that.
When you use the word panel, to me personally, with my background, I immediately connected to long-term involvement. Otherwise, you're involving, you're organizing people for an activity, you see, when you say panel.
Yeah.
But if you talk about the panel in a conference setting, it's something else, of course. But
I follow what Koen says, because for us it's also a longitudinal panel, and you also invest in panel managers. If we compare ourselves with other research groups within our own organization, they also set up panels sometimes, so one-time shot, and then they do their research activity, and then the panel is gone. And when they have a new project, they again set up the panel. They do, but for VITALISE, we have a permanent panel. Of course, it changes. It's also dynamic. New people come in, people go out. We also recruit very specifically panels for specific assignments, and we also ask them if they want to come in our general panel, and then they get also a questionnaire that we get some data from them and so on. They give their consent, so it's longitudinal, but it moves, of course. They drop out and they come in.
And that's why you need panel management. So if the description which is there is a pool of pre-existing pre-screened people, you need to maintain this anyway. So your offer is we will have panel management for you, because then you don't need to start from scratch. Because if you say, I want to organize an experiment and I need these profiles, you will start with an empty sheet and you will just look for the profiles for that one specific experiment.
Yeah.
The added value of the panel management is that you already have how is that called, historic data of these people, maybe, which can be taken into account as well.
Yeah, so one thing in here, just a reminder that we are doing panel management, but what our client is buying, so they are buying, the testees in a way. So if we think about this from the client point of view, so what would be the title from their point of view then? If I'm buying testees or users or patients or whatever, the contacts basically.
And they are buying the engagement that they don't need to take care of it. So you are ensuring the engagement of the necessary profiles, to put it in the broad context, because it can be a user or a stakeholder. So you're buying engagement, actually.
Yeah, and it also can give another way of for a client to have confidence in you, because you have those data, you are aware of recruiting the right type of people. You could also work with another intermediary organization and let them recruit people, but then there is always one party in between yourself, your living lab, and at the end user that also has to engage with you. If you have your own panel, you have a direct link, of course, with them, so it's different. Yeah, I think it's.
I agree. So the service which you are offering is indeed recruitment and engagement.
Yeah, just thinking about that. If we jump on the trousers of our client and they see panel management or what they want to be seeing, I'm totally agreeing that if I see that there's a living lab who has 1,000 users in the panel, so that it makes me feel confident that, okay, they know what they are doing. Whereas if somebody else is saying to me that, okay, we will be recruiting them, and it might take some time, yes. So that's the thing. But anybody else who has not yet been giving their comments about what would be a good title for this kind of a particular activity? And I think there's a little bit discussion about that, because in here the original description includes this kind of a pre-existing group of people, and this didn't highlight the actual, the recruitment of the persons from the scratch, which have to be always due if you don't have the users or the patients or whatever they are called in any cases. But please, somebody who has not yet been discussing about this panel thing, so what would you be using as a term?
So in interest, we have a database with participants with who we have been in contact more frequently, but we can also offer panel creation or participant recruitment for specific activities or studies on the users, the type, the profile of the participants that with who we normally work more frequently. So I think that it might be, or we find a way to have a description that it's describing well both ways, both service possibilities, or then we need to have two different titles, two different services, because it's a different way of managing, and it's a different offer.
What about if we do, and then what if we use user or the customer or whatever? So if we do it in a way that we combine these two things, the kind of on the scratch user recruitment and this kind of a more permanent panel management, if we combine them as one service, and then we kind of explain that what is the difference between these two?
Yeah, it is
would that be working?
If it is clearly described, it's kind of, it's very connected. So
yes,
it will help not to have a long list of services that are somehow.
Are there then, if we are using this kind of or are we using recruitment and panel management, or can we find out what are we using, user, customer, patient, or what?
I would also call it panel recruitment and panel management, because panels could be different types of profiles.
Yeah, so if you say recruitment, it even can be researchers recruitment, or
Yeah. Okay, so that would be solving the problem if you use panel recruitment and management.
If I'm not mistaken.
But then when you see this title, seems that you don't have already a set panel that you can work with. Or
how about then if like this? I don't know. Or
Tem, didn't we have the recruitment as another service?
Let me see. I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah, I think so, because I think we really looked at this as being managing a panel database yourself. So
no, we don't have.
Okay.
Because I think it didn't come up as because it was so obvious in a way that it's inherited in each of the other things. Yeah.
So I would split it. I would make it 2 separate services.
So
at least
the panel recruitment and panel management as 2 different things. And in here we highlight the permanent panel as well as the ongoing process management, what we do. And in here we say that we are doing a recruitment for that particular study, or we are selecting the. I was just thinking about that from our customer point of view, does it matter for them?
Yes, it does. It will depend on the client. Some clients won't be interested in long-term panel management.
Yeah.
Most of them actually, from my experience. I don't know if you have the same experience, Vicky, but
yes, and it's also how you want to give your data to others. Of course, the panel management is set because it's good for us and we use it ourselves. But yeah.
Okay, let's do it in a way. We split these 2 and we explain, give a definition in a way, and that the panel management is basically pretty close to this one, right? Pre-existing group, and we say management over time. And in here, this we have to be writing as another service that you are recruiting persons and so forth. So everybody okay with this structure?
Yes. Okay.
Any objections?
No.
If not, and then we have the final one. By the way, this point, how much is our time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So let's go jump quickly on the observations. Okay, we have observation, shadowing, and ethnographic studies. Myself, I was suggesting that these titles should be separated, and legal lab was saying observational studies, which it's kind of when they combines all of these together. So what about if we first discuss about how do you feel about if they are separated or are they so alike? For example, ethnographic studies, to me, it's a bit different because observation is something that, or shadowing that you is more like a one of, whereas ethnographical study is a bit more, it's a bit different. You as a researcher go and start doing the research.
Yeah, I see it also as different things. Ethnography studies and observational studies are different, I guess.
Yes, observations are much more active than ethnographic studies, no? Action research, much more than ethnographic study, which will, in my perception, only my perception, is based on available data, while observation is collecting data while you're doing the research. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a researcher, so.
I was thinking the same, but just quickly Googling the definition. Yeah.
So we have it here as well. Ethnographer actively participates in the group activities in order to gain an insider's perspective, to have an experience similar to group members. So that he is an active member over there. Whereas in observations, by definition, you are just observing, you are not interfering the process at all. So that's the difference. So I would be definitely separating these two together.
Okay.
And then it's the question is that okay, do we need the shadowing? Then it would be like observational studies or observations.
I don't think we need the shadowing the words.
Yeah, because it's just somebody is using that one, so I'm okay for skipping it. And we could be saying that in the description.
Mm-hmm.
But do we use only as observations, or do we see observational studies? Maybe observation is more simple one. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Which you would be preferring?
To me, it sounds much more broad, because ethnography observations can go beyond ethnography, no?
Yeah, but we kind of do we agree that we separate these? So now we only
yeah, I do
observations. Agree. Yeah, and this is own entity, this ethnography studies.
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah, but okay with observation, keeping only observation, not observational studies.
Yeah, it's okay. It's observations is more like a technique, and when you apply it in a study, then you have observational studies. So that, I think, is the difference. But you also explain it like being the technique as a research technique. So then I think the word observation is okay.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, you must see, you deliver techniques or do you deliver services to clients? Will you list up all the techniques? Like we had this question also concerning the user personas. It's a technique that you use maybe also in co-creation, for instance. Will you list up all techniques separately from services as well? It's a bit of a mixture that we found in the document. So that might be not always clear for an external person.
Yeah, so the idea was in here that these are kind of the individual entities as possible, but then you are collecting these kind of service offerings where you actually combine multiple approaches or multiple methods, and you say you do this in order to do the the co-creation session. You need all of this, or you need this and that. So that was the idea, and then in the next phases we would try to do that for the use cases that we were describing previously.
Yeah, but I think then there is a lot of more techniques that you could still add to your list, I guess, because if you look also at the iMinds, the innovation toolbox, you'll see a lot of types of techniques that you can use in several interventions you have. So yeah, that's why we were a bit confused on will we list up all the type of techniques.
Yeah, so that was the idea, to collect as many as possible.
Okay.
So that was the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a very nice toolbox at Koen. That was one of iMinds at the time.
Yeah.
Box. It's very useful, and it's full of techniques.
I think it was developed by University of Ghent under the hood of iMinds, indeed.
Yeah. So we could be cross-checking those services as well, or those methods as well, at which of those we are missing at the moment, and which of those could be included as descriptions within each of the items.
But I would skip the word studies, because if you put yourself in the trousers of your client, observations is much less limited to observations.
So we keep the observations.
Yeah, it's okay for me to keep it also like you described it. So yeah.
Okay, but now we've been covering all the titles and including those descriptions. As you see, it's a bit tricky thing to go through all of these things. But what we try to do now in the next phase is that we try to, based on your comments, try to create an enhanced version of the descriptions, and then once we have the interviews with you, we will be addressing also these services and other things to give more insights from you about each of the items. And the sad thing about in here is it's going to be a pretty long discussions with you, because we have so many items to cover in a way. So that's the tricky part in here. It's really difficult, because many of us coming a bit different angle and how we're agreeing the titles. But this is super important for us, because only if we have a common agreement about the titles and the descriptions, then we can be harmonized our processes.
Mm-hmm.
So it will take some time, definitely, and it's much more easier every time when we discuss together. It's kind of we get closer and everybody gets the idea. But hopefully now you get an idea about that. What is genuine the aim in here? Really trying to get connections between all of the items in a way. And think about always as a user interface, thinking about you as a researcher. How do I, access this information? How would I like to access this information? So that's the important thing. So, what is next on the agenda? Or are we finishing for today? We still have the other items, but I think it will take quite a long time to go through those.
Yes, I
So
think we can. Yes, we can skip, because we have reached also the time. Despina was disconnected. She's trying to connect back. So next meeting to work on this is Teemu. You have any information?
If you are, because I'm not jumping on the holidays and I'm coming back on the mid-August. But if you would like to meet again about the rest of stuff, so then it would be something that you could be doing. September. So maybe if we have a discussion tomorrow with you about how to proceed, and we will be informing others in the afterwards. I think that might be the best idea.
Nice. Before closing, I would like also to, since we are a team and we're working towards this all together, I would like to open not the discussion actually, but to give an option. Then you tell us if you have any objection. Since we, as an action task force of an all in health and well-being, we have been given a slot for a workshop in Digital Living Lab Devs. Would you like, actually, I personally find it a good idea, but would you like to use this slot of VITALISE in order to work on this like we have done today? The Digital Living Lab Devs is on September. Do you want to give some more information on this?
Yes, so the session is provisionally blocked on September 8th, Wednesday, from 11:30 to 1300. So you would have 90 minutes to work with a broader community on it, if that might be valuable to you. And then we add it to the program as well, which can create visibility for VITALISE as well, by the way.
So feel free to share any. Sorry.
What do you think? What do you think, Teemu and the others, Vicky?
Yeah, but today we were not using any kind of technical devices to support the discussion or commenting, because we just wanted to keep it very informal. But for that, we definitely have to be using some, like Space or Miro or something like that.
We have Miro available, and we have Mentimeter available for all sessions, so equally for this session as well, of course. Yeah. So we can support this from the conference end, let's say. So that's not a problem. We even have Padlet if you want to have an online community discussion going on. So that's possible as well. If you want to continue the discussion throughout the conference or later onwards or prior to the session or whatever you want, we can create a Padlet if you want. Those are the three tools which we are offering and restricting to, because last year when we offered the possibility to use your own, we were like, well, fooled in the back end massively, because we had to learn all these tools ourselves. So we're now saying these are the three ones, and you, because we know that you can do most of the things with it. So but we will be more than happy to host a session on this effort, because indeed, like you were mentioning, this is crucial in the way of setting this thing up further.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good. Yeah, I should do so. Mm-hmm.
But then I suggest I put it back, well, I don't put anything back in baskets, but the one who will be leading the session, is it you, Dr. Moss, or is Despina, or who should it be?
we'll let you know. We'll discuss with them, with Despina.
Yeah, okay, and then let me know, and then I'll get interactive with the organizer to make sure that we exchange the information needed, and then we can publish the session also as quickly as possible on the program, and then you can start disseminating if you want, and so on.
Yeah, and for that we will have some kind of a draft documents based on the stuff that we've been doing. So we are in a bit different situation in them.
Yeah, so what we need is just a description of what the purpose of the session is and how you construct the session, and that's it. If there are speakers, you should announce the speakers so that we can publish them. And all the rest you can fill in rather freely. We are not very restrictive in the way that you approach a session, so you can make it as interactive or not interactive as you want. We prefer the more interactive, but it's not always possible.
Have there been in the kind of a pre-task for the workshop participants? Have you used those? Like, for example, if they are getting familiar with the material before the session, that would be saving a lot of time as well. Like giving a pre-task, so we would have the comments as a starting point over there.
Yes, we can. Of course, you need to take into account, you were in SPIM 2 last week, Teemu. Not everybody is doing this up front, so you will have to take into account. You can do it, you can offer the possibility, and the input which you will be getting is added for you to start the discussion. But I'm not expecting because you will not have a limitation to participants in your session, I assume now in this particular case. But if you invite like 500 people, not all 500 will do the pre-task. Not even 50 probably at that stage. So
yeah,
that's something which you need to take in the back of your mind. But yes, we can manage this, and we can publish it with the pre-task if that's publicly available, of course. If it's protected, you need to think about it.
Okay, but we can discuss about that, what we do.
Yes.
But we'll do our best. I have already transferred to the PO that all the partners and also external researchers are very eager in this, and we're really happy, all of us, I think, as a consortium and as a team, and hopefully as a friends at some point, some of us, that all people involved are very, very eager in this, and they really contribute, and she was really, really happy, and she can feel this. We might invite her, if possible, for her to join the discussion that we will have during the Digital Living Lab days. Actually, this hands-on workshop, let's say.
And by the way, we didn't mention that the documents that at least I was showing, they are under VP2 as a summary. There's a summary folder under VP2 task 2.1, phase 1, so you could be reading the results from there if you want.
Okay. I have to go, guys. Sorry, I have another meeting I need to be in.
I think all of us, we have to go, not having a meeting, but thank you all. Really happy for all this. So I assume that the idea is to have also a summer cocktail party, virtual party, after we're back from holidays, so we discuss things beyond VITALISE. So we'll send in some emails tomorrow for the next steps. If you have something in mind, a suggestion, especially crazy suggestions, feel free to send to the list so we can vitalize all this as much as possible. Thank you from my side. Teemu, Despina, the others.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.